Good day to one and all. I'm Dr. Shashikala S, Associate Professor. I'm dealing with the culture, diversity, and society, especially Chapter 3. It is Contemporary Challenges of Indian Society. I would like to give an introduction part, mainly the main learning objectives. I would be dealing with communalism, rise and growth of communalism, religious fundamentalism, regionalism, ethnocentrism, globalization, McDonaldization, monoculturalism, child labor, migrant labor, bonded labor, contract labor, mass media and its impact on society. These are the above concepts which I would be dealing with. So, in particular, I would like to go on to my first introduction about communalism. As we all see, what the slide shows me is communalism arises among the society where a particular religious or a sub-religious group tries to promote its own interest at the expense of others. Yeah, communalism is an ideology which states that society is divided into various religious communities. We see there are differ in interest, and at times even we see they are opposed to each other. So communalism can be understood as a blind loyalty to one's own religious group. At the same time, it is described as a tool to mobilize people for or against by raising an appeal on communal lines. So we can say that communalism is associated with religious fundamentalism, dogmatism, etc. And communalism, usually we find that society is divided because on the religious communities who have difference of interest. My next topic could be on rise and growth of communalism in India. We have already seen that the rise and growth of communalism have their roots in the history of India. We are very much aware of the fact of divide and rule policy of the British, which were the main cause of communalism. The beginning of communalism can be traced back to the pre-independence period during the revolt of 1857, which we describe it as a first war of independence. Then we see there was Hindu and Muslims who fought side by side, and they had their own purpose of defeating a common enemy. Here, the British noticed this unity. They realized that their survival rested on being able to keep these people divided. So, they managed to establish their rule because politically in India we have seen this dividing country at the time of their own entry. So, the famous policy of divide and rule mainly was the religion was supposed to be one of the best factor for dividing the people. And also it is used as an influential mechanism to attain economic, political and other social activity. And the Britishers used this religion as their main weapon to divide the strength which India had as a whole. Next, we'll talk about the concept of fundamentalism. Here, I would like to stress upon that we already know that the world is under a massive change where religion is affecting, and it has already been affected. There is a tremendous upsurge of religion all over the world. We see that there is interaction with modernity, where there is human freedom, market freedom, value freedom. All these are different, positioned differently. So here my main concept is religious fundamentalism being one of the major challenge, such as communalism, regionalism, casteism, racism, etc. So we see that in Indian society, religious fundamentalism is a new threat to secular character. It is considered as a socio and political evil. It has also contributed towards religious fundamentalism, and every nation has difference based on race, language, culture. Yes, the different identity coexist in various countries. So here we see that religious fundamentalism defines people by what divides them. It focuses on the differences in humankind rather uniting them. Okay. Next, we see regionalism. Regionalism is also one of the great challenge to the national integration of India. Here we see one particular definition which says that regionalism is an approach to the study the behavior that emphasizes the geographical region as the unit of analysis, stressing the relationship between man and his immediate physical environment. Economic, social, cultural organization are analyzed in terms of their interrelationship and function within the geographic region. Well, regionalism is one of the great challenge to the national integration of India. In India, it is basically a psychic phenomena where the roots are in the mind of the people. So that's the reason we say that regionalism lies in linguistic, ethnic, economic and cultural identity of people living in the specific geographical area. Yes, these political scholars have treated various forms of regionalism, which includes economic regionalism, linguistic regionalism, political regionalism, and even sub-regional movements. So let's come to the next topic, which studies about ethnocentrism. In simple, we can say that ethnocentrism is a practice of comparing other cultural practices with those of one's own and automatically finding those other cultural practices to be as inferior. So here it is an habit of each group taking for granted the superiority of its culture. It makes our culture a special with the concern of language, customs, religion into an yardstick which to measure all other culture as good or bad, high or low, right or queer in proportion to resemblance. So simple, we can say that ethnocentrism is judging another culture solely by the value and standards of one's own culture. So next, let's come to the next topic on the concept of globalization. Our next topic continuation is globalization. We know that it is a buzzword of today, which has helped for the immense growth of trade, either it is national, international. It has made country to work more closely with each other, and it has led for several science, technology, new technology and communication, which has brought people from all over the world together. So here we see that globalization integrates trade, technology, investments, and various other factors are included in the concept of globalization. The term we see, which has been widely used from the past 3 decades, it has come into the usage in the 1980s to describe the movements of people, knowledge, ideas, goods, money, and various other interconnection. So although globalization we see in the economic term, the process has some socio and political implications as well. So next we would like to talk on the topic of monoculturalism, McDonaldization. Here we see that what exactly monoculturalism means. It is to actively preserve a national culture. Though there are other extra influence which are still happening, it is to preserve our own culture. Usually a monocultural society exists due to racial homogeneity, geographical isolation, political isolation. So here it encourages a normative cultural unity or cultural homogeneity. We see that people from various other country come to India, a lot of migrants, and still there is a practice of dominant culture which usually happens. So the monoculturalism tends to be spearheaded by individual. It seeks to protect the national culture or identities, like it is perceived to be threatened especially by attempts of globalization. Still we see that monoculturalism are present, though there are some negative factors also. Let's come to the next, McDonaldization, where we see the process by which the principle of fast food restaurants coming to dominate more and more across the American society as well as rest of the world. We are very much familiar with this concept, and it is making rounds all over the globe. The central concept employed is the fast food industry, which has spread not only to the other type of restaurant but also to the industries like store, bookstore, newspaper, childcare, learning. So there is, we can just call it as a chain which is going around. Next, we'll talk on the topic of child labor. Yes, the very sensitive issue, the child labor, which makes we usually refer. The children of today are the future of tomorrow, which is a very powerful statement which is made. But this reminds us that it is each and everybody's responsibility to mold and shape the child. But whereas we see that children who make about 40% of the population, when we take for India for example, they still suffer from malnutrition, poverty, diseases. They are still having lots of problems, and it is a major concern to the society. Not just society, maybe for the entire world, we can say. So let's talk on the next, migrant labor. Very well, the world says that the migrant labor has different official meaning and connotation. These are the people working outside of their home country. So several countries have millions of foreign laborers. Some have millions of illegal immigrant, most of them being laborers. So then let's talk on the bonded labor. It is an haunting problem of Indian societies for centuries. It is mostly and widely used method of enslaving the people. It is probably the least known form of slavery today. The bonded labor, where there is labor is more in demand, it means a repayment for a loan. The person is then tricked or trapped into working for a very little or no pay at all. These bonded laborers are they are literally forced to do all type of jobs. It is mostly prevalent in the rural areas, especially we see in agriculture. However, in urban areas, it provides a more fertile grounds for long-term bondage. So let's go on to the contract laborer. Our next topic is on contract labor, which is growing and significant form of employment which is prevalent almost in all kind of industry, agriculture, allied operations, service sectors. So we see there is an intermediary. It is based on the three-way relationship between the employer, the contractor and the worker. So let's next topic, mass media and communication, which is a tremendous source of information for individual as well as for the society. So here we talk about the means of communication which is able to reach the large number of masses. The media is one of the diverse collection of tools, technology, also a form of entertainment. We see that various mass media includes like newspaper, magazine, radio, television, internet, so on and so forth. So the entire concept we are going to deal in the third chapter. So thank you one and all.